Hello, welcome to another Let's Play for a game from the Yandere Game Jam on Itch. This one is called Be My Muse. So I'll go ahead and read the description as well as the content warnings. You join an art exhibit at your local art museum, and while trying to get away from the crowd, you meet a strange man who, for some reason, really wants to paint a portrait of you. And that is about it for the actual description. This is a Yandere horror visual novel. As far as content warnings, the game contains depictions of blood, as well as a character who manipulates and gaslights the player. This is only going to be the demo, but the full game will contain depictions of death, and viewer discretion is advised. So I'm very excited to play this game. I I really like art personally. I am not an artiste. I do not have an artistic bone in my body as far as painting or creating anything that's visually appealing. Let me put it that way. But I do find the idea of like a muse and combined with a lot of these yandere tropes. I think it'll be really interesting to see how they execute that. And this game was created by Batter Senpai, also known as Axio Little, I believe. Anyway, let's jump right on into it. If my mouse will behave. Okay. And I don't know if this game has any music. Right now we don't have any and we're on the intro screen. Okay, we already went over that. I never liked crowds. I always avoided them when I could. Being with a few people was fine, but being in large crowds full of strangers made me want to recede into myself. I used to draw a lot when I was in crowds. I had a notebook and a pencil with me when I was in school or public areas. Sketching helped me pretend I wasn't uncomfortable close to a large number of people. Eventually, I got into an art school, hoping that my years of doodles would be put to good use. I didn't expect that I would eventually be thrust back into a crowd again. Okay, so she's an artist, or he. They don't specify the gender. Or they might be a they or them. They might be non binary. I don't know. I had been in the school for over a year, and today, many of the students were chosen to participate in an exhibit in the city's art museum. The exhibition was held with hopes to gain the interest and financial support of rich investors, and so the students had to present their best works for it. The art students had to submit a painting, the music students had to put on a recital, basically anything to show what you learned at the academy. Usually I like art museums, but not today. Not when I had to mingle with a crowd of overly dressed strangers who seemed to view our pieces as inferior. Some of my friends from the art school were here, but it didn't help much. I stayed at the corner of the room, near some empty seats where there were less people, hoping and praying that no strangers would come over and try to start a conversation with me. I was never good at small talk with unfamiliar people. I'm the same way. I have horrible social anxiety. I always get really anxious whenever I have to talk to someone that's a stranger. My art piece is there among the rest of the students. The one with a man standing in the ocean, with the dark, stormy sky above. My name was under the painting. It was okay. So we have a name that's already typed in, Mary. We're just gonna go with that, Mary. It almost feels like it doesn't belong there. It's so plain and sad. Oh, I've heard from artists that like they tend to be their worst critics, and it sounds like that is the case for Mary. I just could not find the right inspiration for it. I had no muse. This time limit and the anxiety of being displayed here did not help. The more I looked at the painting, the more I hated it. I need to get out of this hall. The voices are deafening, there's too much movement. I moved stealthily to the large doors, dodging around people, and slipped into the quiet hallways. I really like the backgrounds so far, they're very colorful. The sounds of voices and footsteps faded quickly, almost too quickly. But I didn't mind, I was free. I could think clearly now. I began to make my way down the hall at a slow but steady pace. The air was cool and felt nice after the heat from the crowd, but after a while I noticed a rather stale smell in the air, like the smell of a building that has been left empty for a long time. The sound of fluorescent lighting above suddenly grew louder. What does fluorescent lighting sound like? Maybe it was because there was no one around? Okay, so everything just went dark. The paintings and sculptures on display looked unfamiliar. But perhaps this was an old wing of the art museum I'd never been to despite my frequent visits. The carpet and wallpaper did seem on the older side. So maybe she's in some sort of time paradox? I heard something. A voice? A song? Someone was singing, their voice echoing eerily down the corridor. It was a beautiful voice, deep and rich. They sang a song that sounded like a distant memory, something familiar, but from a time that no longer existed. Okay, this music is really creepy. I suddenly noticed that I had been completely still, gazing in the direction of where the voice seemed to be coming from. I had been standing stiff, arms rigidly raised, slightly in a defensive pose. It was as if I was transfixed by the unusual voice. How long have I been standing here? The voice seemed to be getting louder. Oh, we can see someone at the corner of the hall, or at the other end. A figure materialized down the hallway, hazy in the darkness. I could not make out any details aside from this person being very tall. A pang of fear shot through me, but I could not leave. The voice grew steadily louder, the song more wild. I didn't want to leave. I could only watch as the figure drew closer. Hey, Mary. Finally, ugh, I told you Mary was fine. The familiar voices seemed to unstiffen my body. I turned around. Almost instantly, the voice stopped. It didn't just fade away, but rather cut off like a radio being turned off or unplugged. My closest friend Estelle was making her way down the corridor, holding up her dress a little so it wouldn't drag on the carpet, and running as fast as her heels would allow her to. She's so cute! Seeing her felt like a wave of relief. However, the relief was cut short at the sight of Salvador. He stood further down the corridor, arms folded and with a grimace on his face. I instinctively returned his disgusted expression. Mary, please don't run off like that again. I got worried when I couldn't find you back at the exhibition. I went around asking everyone where you went. She spoke in her usual quick, excited way, but there was a frantic look in her eyes as she clasped her hands dramatically. 2 students just left the exhibition without telling anyone, and no one could find them anywhere. I was so worried when you weren't in the hall, too. Those 2 probably ran off to make out somewhere in the museum or something. I don't get why everyone's so worried. Sal spoke in a low, frustrated voice. Are they breaking the third wall here? Also, MC, don't think I'm here willingly. Estelle dragged me out here to look for you. I saw you leaving the hall, which, we've been told not to leave when the exhibition is on, so you're lucky I didn't tell our professors. I told her I saw you. Then she demanded I go with her to find you. Okay, so is Sal not actually our friend? I didn't demand or drag you, Sal. You agreed to look for MC with me. Yeah, they keep calling her MC. That's interesting. What? I did not. You told me you visit the museum often, so you knew your way around. And that you knew which wing MC liked to visit, and... Really? A full-blown argument was brewing. Estelle seemed to be keeping her dignity, but Sal's face was growing slightly red. Look, are we done here? We should just go back to the hall. I'm pretty sure it's almost time for the recital. We have a few songs to perform, and you better not blow out your voice before it. Oh, the recital. Yes, okay, come on, MC. You promised you would listen to me sing, right? You can stand near the doors if you feel uncomfortable with so many people around and just listen. I'll come see you when the recital's over and we can find a nice, quiet place to just sit and talk, okay? It seems like Estelle is kind of aware of the social anxiety that Mary has. I nodded with a grateful smile. It was a blessing to have an understanding friend like Estelle. We've been friends for years. Even though she was far more extroverted than I was, we got along well, able to cater to our different interests. There were times I did wonder if it was alright if we could be something more. Oh, interesting. I did wonder what it would be like to spend our lives together, so she has a crush on Estelle. But I didn't dare to ask her. I was happy with our friendship, and after some mulling over it, felt that it would be best to wait for her to return the feeling so it wouldn't be so awkward. I'm going back to take care of my baby. Better make sure it's all tuned up for the recital. So is this a violin? Because I played the violin in high school and middle school. It might also be a viola, but it looks like a violin. It looks bigger than a viola. Do you really still call your okay violin a baby? I could not help saying yes because it is. It's my most prized possession. I'm leaving now. Better come back to the hall before anyone misses you, or don't. I don't care. With that spiel, Sal turned on his heels and strode back to the recital hall. I suddenly noticed that the corridor around me looked familiar again. The pictures on the walls changed too. The carpets were the same carpets and wallpapers I had seen throughout this area of the museum. The paintings were the ones I passed by so many times during my visits. There was no longer the musty smell or the loud fluorescent lights. I didn't have time to wonder about it. Estelle was already ushering me back to the hall, holding me by one arm, excitedly talking about what we could get for dinner that night once the event was over. The recital went smoothly. I stood at one of the doors of the hall, away from the crowd, listening and gazing at the stage. Estelle sang with the rest of the singers. I could just pick out her lovely voice from the rest of the voices. She could not get the coveted solo parts of the medley, which she had expressed disappointment in. But as it was, she seemed happy to be able to sing to an audience. Her eyes shone, and the subtle smile on her face made the song sound even happier to me. Singing was her joy in life, and it was pleasant to see her enjoying herself on the stage. Sal was with the rest of the orchestra, playing on his precious violin. I could just see him from where I stood. He sat among the other violinists, not standing out at all. Even though we had not been on good terms for many years, I couldn't help admiring his passion for music. He seemed almost lost in his playing, eyes transfixed on the conductor with a small smile on his face. It wasn't his usual infuriatingly smug smile, but a serene, joyful one, like he was happy to be where he belonged. Eventually the medley ended. I was expecting an eruption of applause, but the crowd was only generous enough to give a moderately loud, almost dainty sounding ovation. This really was a tough crowd to please, perhaps feeling that us students were below their refined tastes. Or maybe most of them were still holding champagne glasses in their hands and didn't want to put them down. Yeah, it's really interesting because maybe this is just like a modern day movement, but artists are, which I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but artists seem so into, you know, capturing real, real, genuine, authentic expression. That's sort of rooted in humbleness, and not always, but I do feel like that tends to be the theme, and that's where you hear the phrase "the struggling artist," right? Because they're so passionate about their art that they are willing to sacrifice the drapings um of success, financial success specifically, in order to pursue their art. And yet the crowd that typically caters to is normally a lot more wealthy and not pretentious, but more concerned with aesthetics. It was now time for refreshments to be served. As tempting as the food and drink provided was, I felt too sick in the stomach to weave my way through the crowd so that I could reach the tables. Not only because of the crowd, but also because the next event scheduled would be presenting our paintings. Oh, and I was not looking forward to being paraded in front of the crowd with my measly looking painting, especially a crowd with such a superiority in artistic taste. After some hesitation, I once again slipped out through the doors into the hallway beyond. Oh my god, I would not. Like, we just saw the hallway change up on us. I wouldn't go back in again. I was only planning to stay in the corner outside of the exhibition hall, maybe sit on a bench nearby and wait for Estelle. However, something immediately caught my ear. Singing. The same voice from before, and it was much nearer. It seemed to be coming from right around the corner. Curious and also rather irritated that I was so frightened of a mere voice, I decided to confront this mysterious singer. I strode over and rounded the corner in a sharp turn, and ran face first into someone I never met before. Oh my god, look at this character design. The singing stopped instantly, and he let out a small yelp as something clattered to the floor. I took a step back, surprised by this unexpected meeting. Oh, he looks crazy. Did you... Like, it was fine before he opened his eyes, but... The man gazed back at me. He was so tall that I had to raise my head just to look at his face. In a quick second, I took in his appearance. White formal suit, gold accessories including a pair of gold-rimmed glasses with shaded glass, long black hair with streaks of white in it. His clothing seemed to imply that he was here to watch the recital as well, looking like one of the rich, well-dressed investors. However, the way he presented his attire was strange, with his suit and shirt being mostly unbuttoned, his jacket hanging off his right shoulder, and his hair looking a bit wild. I could not pinpoint what it was exactly, but there seemed to be something very off about him. My apologies. His voice was as deep and mellifluous as his singing voice. Even when he was simply apologizing, his voice felt pleasant to the ears. Okay, so he's a singer. He knelt down and reached out to some objects with his left hand. I suddenly noticed that I had caused him to drop a box of paints and brushes after running into him. Oh, I'm sorry. I knelt down and began to help pick up the scattered paints and brushes. In a minute, we managed to put everything back into his box, which he shut with a click. I'm sorry for running into you like that. I stammered awkwardly. I was still not good at talking to strangers. There's no need to apologize. It was simply an accident, was it not? He grinned at me as he spoke. Yeah, and, you're singing. I felt annoyed at myself for being so awkward and being unable to get a full sentence out. Hmm? Ah, yes. Do you have any qualms about my singing? Oh, no. I was just wondering. I heard you singing earlier, somewhere else in the museum, and I was just, well, trying to find you? I couldn't find the words to fully express what I wanted to ask. Oh? He beamed, his face brightening up with a look of joy and satisfaction. I am delighted that you were so drawn to my singing that you wished to search for me. If you are questioning why I was singing, I was hired at the very last second as a replacement singer for one who could not make it to this exhibition. I was simply practicing when you heard me. Oh, well, I'm Mary, and, you don't need to practice alone down a dark, empty hallway. The other singers were all practicing in a separate room. My friend Estelle was there practicing earlier. I I can take you there if you like. Yes, that is true. Well, I appreciate your concern greatly, but it is simply that I do not like crowds much and have a preference for seclusion and silence. I much rather practice alone. Whoa, does he have fangs? What is this here? It was my turn to brighten up. Oh, same. I mean, I don't like crowds either, that's why I'm out here. Ah, such a coincidence. Perhaps I could take you from the crowd for a bit. I've been searching for a muse for an art piece I wish to paint after all, so he's a singer and a painter. Alright, He was carrying a box of paints and brushes. Very good quality ones, too, from what I saw scattered on the floor. Oh, I thought you were a singer. Indeed, I am. But I possess skills in painting, too. I adore any form of art, any genre of creation, and have some capability in each of them. Singing, painting, sketching, sculpting, playing instruments, writing, acting. I couldn't tell if he was bragging or not, especially with his odd, slightly arrogant way of speaking. However, his confidence and his deep, soothing voice made me believe every word he said. However, before each art piece can be made, I require a muse, an inspiration, something that will spark me an idea to create. Ah, yeah, I can relate to that. I sighed, thinking about my painting back on the hall and the many failed art pieces I've made over the years. And you, my dear, shall be an excellent muse. I'd been looking down for most of the conversation, as I did not like making eye contact. However, this made me jerk my head back to look up at him in surprise. What? It was at that moment when I finally locked eyes with him and noticed how strange his eyes were, right? How did I not notice his bright golden eyes and black sclera before? I gazed at him, my eyes transfixed on his, both from surprise and from his unearthly yet ethereal eyes. I wish to create a painting inspired by you. I do hope that it is all right and that you will agree. But, but why me? I mean, I'm not particularly attractive or interesting. The man's expression softened. You are beautiful. Perhaps you do not see that yourself, but in my eyes you have a charm to you, a deep allure. You have inspired me greatly when I gazed upon you. Please, will you be willing to be my muse? Several feelings were stirred up in me from his words. I was flattered, but also in disbelief. Yeah, I have to admit, this would be weird, because, I mean, she just ran into him, and he wants to paint her right from jump. However, I also felt a deep sense of fear, although I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was making me nervous. I, I always wanted to inspire people with my art, I guess, like a lot of artists do. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind, since you haven't seen my art yet. Oh, but I have. Yours is the painting of a man standing in the waves by the sea. It is absolutely gorgeous. And the way you painted the sea, ah, it reminds me of a far lovelier time. I felt my cheeks grow red. Huh. I mean, thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's I mean, not as good as everyone else's, but I really appreciate it. I guess, yeah, if you want to use me as an inspiration, I could help you out. Excellent. I love how all it takes is a couple compliments about her art, and she's sold. The man was overjoyed, raising his deep voice much louder than before, and immediately turning around in a single motion. He began hurriedly walking down the hallway, while he still spoke. Come along now. I have a canvas ready in another room. Wait, I promised to wait for Estelle. Please do not concern yourself with her for now, or your other friend Salvador either. We must get to the painting this instant with the inspiration while the inspiration is fresh. That's creepy. How does he know who our friends are? He isn't my friend, but hey, wait. I was now running down the hall. He was so tall that each stride he took was almost twice the distance I could cover in one step. I don't even know you yet. We just met, and ah, yes, I have to introduce myself. How horribly rude. He spoke with the same calmness he did before, despite him moving so quickly along the corridor. My name is Zacharias. Oh my goodness, this last name. Mnemosyne? Mnemosyne? A pleasure to make your acquaintance. Mnemosyne, is that, the Greek goddess of memory? I spoke hurriedly between quick breaths, as I was barely able to keep up with him. He turned to me and grinned, showing his strangely sharp teeth. Okay, so that wasn't just me. While still keeping up his rapid pace. Ah, of course. You used to have a fascination with Greek mythology during your adolescence, yes? You have quite the collection of books on Greek mythology. So, how does he know that? Um, so far he's known about her friends, her art piece, because I mean, we haven't even provided him with our name. So, even if it had like a placard next to her artwork, it wouldn't make sense for him to connect that with her. And it doesn't sound like she was standing in front of her art piece. It sounds like she's been mainly hiding off in a corner. And now he knows this about our past, which, I mean, if this happened in her adolescence, how would he know that? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Um, I'm not sure how long this demo is. It doesn't say on the page for the game on itch, but it is very intriguing so far. Um, I have no idea what to make of Zacharias. I almost wonder if this is some sort of alternate reality because we had the hallway transform, and now he knows all this stuff about her history, even going back to her adolescence. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any theories and how you're liking it so far. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you next time.